where they need to be uploaded. So if you want access to our presentation, or we've summarized things in a handout as well, you are welcome to download those. And also our contact information is in here, so feel free to reach out to us anytime if you'd like to follow up. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We are here to take you on a journey along with us of how we came to incorporate student feedback and student voice into our quality assurance practices. What we are doing here specifically at the research conference is that we really took a research-based approach in how we developed our processes for what would become our student advisory board. Hi, I am Michelle Vonie. I am an instructional designer and I am the primary QM coordinator here at the University of Arizona. So my part of this is really the quality matters side of this. And for the rest of it, I'll switch it over to Samantha to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Maxwell. I am an instructional technologist with the University Center for Assessment, Teaching, and Technology at U of A. And my part in this is running the student advisory board that Michelle has been so gracious to help me combine some quality matters work into. Thank you.
All right, so just to start us off with a little bit of background and context. So as mentioned, we are here at the University of Arizona, and one of the things that well, Samantha specifically inherited when she came into her position was a student advisory board for instructional technology. So this was an already existing group on campus, and since Samantha took it over, she's worked to develop it out and expand its reach. So right now, currently, the board is composed of 8 student representatives, 2 student government representatives, and 4 administrative advisors. And that includes Samantha and myself. So work that this being part of this board entails is that each member commits about 8 hours per academic year. Half of that is dedicated to meetings. So we meet synchronously on Zoom twice in the spring and twice in the fall. And then the other half of the time is spent on outside work where they review technologies, faculty presentations, and then of course fill out a bunch of information for us to collect and then go back and analyze later. This is a compensated position, so students can apply to be part of this board, and then we go through and make our final selection based on their qualifications. And their experience with online learning, as well as we try to maintain a very diverse spectrum of students on the board.
I will add that that stipend, that compensation did make a world of difference when we received applications. So definitely
Yes.
encouraging.
Yes, absolutely. And then the quality matter side of things is we here at the U of A do internal peer reviews. So we use the custom review system to do our own internal peer reviews, and those are fully kind of staffed out by faculty and staff here at the University of Arizona who have gone through training to become peer reviewers. We also have a number of in-house QM professional development. That includes the APPQMR, the IYOC, the DYOC, and then a few other QM-inspired workshops that we have developed out ourselves as internal trainings. So that's where we're coming from. Just to give a brief overview of the SABIT goals. Generally, this is a really good point to bring back in that idea of compensation. How do we compensate our students? Well, they're compensated right now through something called the I-course fee. And that is a fee that is leveraged on students who take fully online courses. one of the main responsibilities of the Student Advisory Board is to allocate that I-course fee efficiently, and obviously make transparent where those funds are going. So they help monitor fee usage and advise our Assistant Vice Provost on what technologies and other initiatives that fee should be used towards. And then, of course, we have expanded out the goals to include educational quality. So that includes quality assurance and online learning. Again, here we rely pretty heavily on QM to inform our quality assurance program, as well as tech support and learning tools, and things like eliminating proctoring fees. And for the students themselves, it provides them for an opportunity for professional development and continuous learning. Okay, so that's kind of what we had. We had the Student Advisory Board and we have Quality Matters, and never shall the twain meet. They were completely separate entities. And previously with Quality Matters, we had kind of situated it entirely to aid teachers and course developers. And our scope with Quality Matters was very heavily focused on the review side of things. So preparing faculty and staff to become reviewers and then take part in that internal peer review process. Since I came on board, we've really been working to build out those processes to include trainings for instructors to help prepare their courses for Quality Matters review, as well as just kind of general outreach towards students. So that general outreach led us to want to get some more specific outreach. So really, we wanted to find a way to incorporate student voices and make sure that they are loud, they are heard, and they have a direct line of feedback to us about what we are doing in terms of quality assurance and how well it is working for them. So the Student Advisory Board provided us with a direct connection to do so. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to kick it over to Samantha. She let me generously do kind of the general overview, but she is really the expert in all things Student Advisory Board. So she's really going to take us through our process and then how we developed kind of this research-based approach to it.
Wonderful. Well, as I will remind you all later, this was a very iterative process. Michelle and I learn something every year, which is great, more than one thing. Where we started with the SAB and what a year looks like as a member of the SAB is in the beginning of the year, we would introduce whatever educational technologies we were piloting. Students would have questions that we would design for feedback, be able to analyze. We would analyze the data and use that to shape future meetings and basically really give students a voice when it comes to what piloted technologies we are going to fund through that I-course fee and which were not worth it to the students and why. We really, that's the focus of these meetings over the course of the year. Intentional technology, powered by students, supported by students. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. One thing that we wanted to add in this slideshow that was really important is, for lack of a better word, Michelle and I made some mistakes along the way and were able to learn from those. And so we really wanted to make this as informative as possible, even if it means highlighting some areas for growth that we had. So at the very beginning, when we were trying to figure out how to wed Quality Matters technology, the Student Advisory Board, all of this stuff together, that is a great question. Yes, absolutely. Michelle, do we have a dedicated slide on this one for I-course fee?
We don't, but please feel free to improv on it.
Yeah, I'll riff. So the I-course fee right now is set at a $50 fee for any student who enrolls in online courses. This fee is used to help fund certain positions that support digital technologies within the university. It supports student accessibility initiatives and tutoring services, academic services. It's really designed to help make the online learning experience better. That's what that entire fee and budget is allocated for. And we are very grateful that we get to use it to compensate our students on the Student Advisory Board as well. So mind the gap. We're going to use the word gap a lot here because that's all Michelle and I saw. We realized that there were huge gaps between student engagement and interaction within the platforms that we were using. We would talk about things like teacher-to-student engagement, student-to-student engagement, looking at all of that and how much that mattered or didn't matter to students. We didn't know. We saw gaps in accessibility and inclusivity. And then we also realized how much lack of, I don't want to say alignment about alignment. There was a separation between alignment measures and some of the course content that was being created. So first we needed to, next slide please, create an intersection of all of these things. So again, that's Quality Matters, Technology, and Student Voices, and the Student Advisory Board was the perfect opportunity for that. But how would we bridge the gap? I realize now we maybe went a little bit too hard on the gap, but it did feel monumental at the time. So one thing we realized was the data that was being collected in previous SAB years was really the organic conversations that were happening within the Zoom meetings. So students would arrive to these Student Advisory Board meetings. They would usually come with a task prepared. As you saw before, they had 4 hours of out-of-meeting work and 4 hours of in-meeting work. So out of the meeting, they would prepare these tasks, they would come, and we would all talk. And the discussion points would be jotted down by a note taker, and then that was usually where that would end. And so we saw this as a great opportunity for growth because in order to apply what we learned from data, we need the actual data.
Yeah, and if I may interject here, I think it's important to note that their out of meeting work was really entirely focused on, here is a technology tool that we are considering adopting for our fully online courses, go play with it, and then ultimately come back and make a recommendation to us about. So that was really, it was very, very narrow in scope. It was all about investigate this tool and tell us whether or not you think we should adopt it.
Thank you for
So
saying that. I want to add too that in addition to that, by Explore the Tool, they weren't even provided sandboxes at the time. It was really, here's a link, here's a YouTube video about it. So they didn't get to engage in depth beforehand like they do now. Thank you, Michelle. So in the following year, we decided to expand the types of data that we could collect, and we found ourselves using Google Forms, making written surveys with both Likert answers and more qualitative, longer answers. In our meetings, we decided to start always recording them in addition to having some sort of export or transcript afterwards for review. We also decided to do more tasks in shared digital spaces that everybody could reference afterward. In this case, it was Padlet. We had 3 free licenses, so we went ahead and did that. But any digital space where you and the students can all collaborate and use as an artifact for later, great idea. Michelle, I'm going to kick it to you on this data questions to ask oneself.
yeah, so again, like when we were, this wasn't really a conscious decision that either Samantha or I made. We both have relatively strong research backgrounds, so we just kind of automatically went to approaching, okay, how can we build out the Student Advisory Board so it has more impact and has a greater kind of breadth and depth. We just kind of automatically went to a research place. So immediately we started thinking, okay, what data do we want? What data are we missing and what data do we want? And then ultimately, what are we going to be using it for? Because that was really, really important for us. And it was a question that we threw back and forth with each other a lot. For example, like, are we trying to prove impact here? In that case, like, who are the stakeholders who we're reporting to? Is this data that we're ultimately going to send forward to the provost? To kind of justify the I-course fee and the use of it and how we're using it, and advocate for more funding and opportunities for our quality assurance practices? Are we going to use it strictly internally for developing out new processes and trainings? Are we going to publish it publicly internally, semi-publicly? So all of these questions really dictated the type of methods that we wanted to use. For example, thinking strictly of reporting to stakeholders, we were thinking, okay, we need solid quantitative data for that. That wound up not being the direction that we went in for this year. So ultimately, we fell in kind of more of a mixed methods, where we're mixing quantitative and qualitative data. But the qualitative data was really, really important for us to maintain and to continue to get. Because that is really what we're using to help inform like the trainings that we're developing, and how we're going about and conducting our reviews. So these are really like important questions to ask at that beginning, and it will really, really kind of helped us to really focus down into, okay, surveys are easy and they can give us both quantitative and qualitative. That's a great way to start.
We also decided that we could not focus on everything. This was another thing that Michelle and I learned. As exciting as so many aspects of educational technology can be, and as much data as we want from the students, we had to narrow down to our priority areas. So we would pick one or two critical areas where we really wanted that student feedback to impact that specific, again, area of our online courses. So a great example, I'll skip down to example 2, accessibility and inclusivity. We really wanted, that would be an area that you could focus on for an entire year of a student advisory board. And you really, really could get enough data just about that.
Okay, so this is kind of where I took over a lot because I'm greedy. I want all the data. I have a lot of ideas, and a lot of kind of big dreams about where our quality assurance program could go and grow. So when I was thinking about, okay, what do I want to use all of this data for? Obviously, I mentioned it before. I'm sure anyone involved in QM has fought this struggle, but proving impact is huge for us. It's super duper important. It's really important to get kind of buy-in from the top down. The provost, they care about numbers. So sharing the data, making it publicly available, and proving that this is having a measurable impact on our students. They are seeing what we are doing and they are responding to it, is something that I'm really interested in the future. Again, this is a really big prospect, so we're kind of working our way up to that slowly but surely. And it's probably going to be the process of several years to collect kind of a good range of data to present. But we're also thinking smaller. So one of our goals for next year, we're already thinking ahead, is incorporating student reviews. So that is definitely a form of data and a way to apply our data. But these areas that students are really interested in, like, let's have them review an actual course. Let us know how we're kind of measuring up, how they are kind of interpreting the QM standards, et cetera, using them in, again, internal review reports. This is something that I am really passionate about as well. I work as the QMC for our internal reviews. I work really extensively with instructors during the amendments phase, and being able to contextualize a lot of the recommendations that they receive from reviewers with actual feedback from students about why this is important is I think going to be huge for our review process and for smoothing out the amendments process, making it really efficient and effective. We're also interested in using the data for marketing as well. So again, we have right now the QM seal on a bunch of courses, but that's kind of where it ends. So how can we use like all of these really cool things that we're doing with quality assurance and, you know, inviting students into that process to kind of set ourselves apart as a university and attract more applicants and, you know, for individual programs to say, hey, this is something that's really special and unique about our program. Another thing, and this is kind of apropos because there's been a lot going on with the QM sphere about the use of templates and how we can use templates effectively. That's also something that we're working on here at the university, is building out course templates that are based on QM standards. And obviously, as we build those out, we want to get students' feedback on it. Todd, you just asked a fantastic question. I'm going to get to that. And then lastly, trainings, which actually, Todd, you segued me really well into that last part. Yes, trainings. So currently, graduate students can serve as reviewers. I suppose undergrads could as well if they go through the workshop training, but we've never had any undergraduates go through that. But we have had a fair number of graduate students. But yes, building out trainings. I would very much like to build out a kind of student-focused intro to QM type of course that's really aimed at students and kind of educating them on what QM is and what the QM standards are, so that when they see that seal, it actually means something to them. So yes, we are absolutely using this feedback to kind of develop out that type of training. We are also using the feedback to inform the trainings that we're developing out for our instructors as well. Deb, awesome. Yes, QM for students. I need to get into that and to get inspiration from that. Absolutely. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're hoping to go with this. And then obviously, this is just one piece of the puzzle as well. The student advisory board is great, but you saw that, you know, we have 10 students on it out of, gosh, what's our student body numbers, Samantha? It's like 50,000 something.
40, I think, yeah.
40,000, yeah, out of 40,000 students. So there's only, you know, we can only go so far in terms of making it representative of our entire student body. So we're also interested in drawing data from other sources as well. Institutional data, course from our course feedback, surveys that go out at the end of each semester. We're interested in obtaining course-specific student feedback as well. That's a process that we're working on developing for courses that have gone through QM review, providing them with or encouraging them to link out to a survey where students can leave kind of more detailed feedback specifically on the QM elements in the course. And then obviously collaboration with the larger student data network within the University of Arizona. So really what we wanted out of this presentation is to hopefully inspire you guys, if you haven't, if you don't already have something like a student advisory board, to set one up yourself, kind of show you some of the possibilities and the ways that this type of board could grow. Yes, Sam, the Student Data Network, we have, oh gosh, there are so many acronyms and I'm going to blank on all of them. But things like our student, we have a whole student success network, and they collect a lot of data. There are several different departments within the student success kind of realm, They're almost a college in and of themselves. They're so big. But yeah, they collect a lot of data, demographic data, along with, obviously they have institutional data like DFR, and they also get, they send out their own surveys and cast a really wide net across all of the student body. So we're really looking to collaborate with them more in the future and see, how the student advisory board could fit in there, and how we can kind of leverage each other. So yeah, if you are interested in setting up your own board, these were kind of the steps that we kind of hammered out as we were going through it. Samantha mentioned this in the beginning, and again, I cannot emphasize enough, unfortunately, because I know that this is often the step where people get, kind of stymied. Funding is really important. Funding has allowed us to get a really, really big pool of applicants each semester so that we have the ability to ultimately choose a good, diverse, representative body for this board. It's also really important for us that we are compensating students for their time, especially as we are asking more and more of them as the scope of this board expands. So funding, what can you do there? Well, we're lucky enough that we have the I-course fee. It may be worthwhile looking into your own university. Do you have any sort of mandatory fees for fully online courses? And if so, how can you get a piece of that pie? Is there room within that budget for something like a student advisory board? People like student advisory boards, higher ups like them. And the ultimate cost is relatively light. So it's a pretty easy sell. So that is definitely a great way of looking into kind of first and foremost. If you don't have something like an I-course fee, obviously your departmental budget, is there room in that? So that might be worth talking to your supervisors or your directors or the people above them to see if that could be worked into the budget. If not, provost investment funds. Does your provost offer anything like this? This would be a great fit for something like a provost investment fund, and applying for some of that money. If not that, external grants or internal grants as well are also a great avenue. And ultimately, if there is no money to be had, because very often there is no money to be had, look around on your campus and see, are there existing groups that you can kind of shoehorn your way into? That is a little bit of what we did with this. We inherited the student advisory board. It was already there. And when we started talking about expanding it and kind of making it so that it had a greater impact and greater weight, people, again, those higher ups, the big they, were really enthusiastic about that. So it's worthwhile getting out there, even if it's you wind up starting off just with student government and seeing if you can get kind of a couple meetings out of the year with student government, and you start there and you work your way out from that. There are most certainly groups on campus where you can fit in and get some really good data out of. Once you've secured your funding, great, awesome. The board is ready to go. You are ready to run. So then this was something that was really important for us. And please do this as you are creating it. This is a mistake that we made. Create your bylaws. So do that from the start. I think Samantha can talk more about this, but we really kind of had to go back and create bylaws. And it tripped us up a lot in terms of like what we were already doing versus what we wanted to do, and defining responsibilities that had kind of already semi-loosely been defined, and it was kind of a mess. So if you start off with creating a draft version You can see our bylaws are still in draft format. They are a working, living document. It's going to continue to grow and evolve as we kind of learn and progress through our plans for the Student Advisory Board, but start that off from the beginning. After that, recruitment. Recruit your student applicants. And this is another mistake that we made. We perhaps foolishly did not realize that if we just went through standard recruitment channels, which is like, reach out to faculty and encourage their students to apply, send out announcements on college listservs to their students, things like that. What we got were the high achieving, high participating domestic students. We got a lot of student applicants from the Honors College. We got student applicants from student government, which was great because they put in a lot of work and they were really enthusiastic, but it wasn't exactly a representative board for that first year. So after that, we really tried to diversify our channels of recruitment, reaching out to different student body groups. And Samantha has some great tips on places where you might want to, specifically reach out to and encourage them to encourage their contacts to apply. Then again, we know we have a board at this point, like 100%. We have a board. We have an actual board. Then you determine your questions for that year. So figure out what questions you want to have answered. And again, this was really important for us that they were small enough that they could be answered within a year, because that is the term of service for our student advisory board members. So that they could be answered within a year. And then of course, your data collection, how are you going to collect it? After that, what materials do you need to create to collect that data? And then when you have that, you're ready to run. So you can go ahead and run it.
In addition to one thing I want to echo from the last slide real quick, which is just make sure that those bylaws are a live document and that your students feel free to comment on there at any time, because they will have questions and they are good ones. But also get feedback on how you're receiving the feedback from your students. At the end of every semester, we ask our student advisory board members if they felt like they were heard and if these concepts made sense to them. Did we do enough scaffolding? And remember that it's all iterative. One thing that our students requested for this upcoming year is, which allowed us to actually request a little bit more in our budget, was those sandbox tools. So now we're able to meet with vendors and say, hey, our student advisory board would really like to use your technology and apply and learn. So just keep that in mind. Every semester is an opportunity to learn something from them.
And a lot of that came out, like the request for sandboxes, 100% came out of the more in-depth questions that we were asking of them. It wasn't enough anymore for them to just go and poke around on the website to be able to finally make a recommendation. We're asking them in-depth questions about things like, how easy is the software to use? What specifically did you struggle with? What were the accessibility features? What opportunities were there for interaction? Like, how did this tool facilitate interaction? So all of those more targeted questions led them to be like, hey, we don't have enough to be able to answer this. So we needed to get them kind of full sandbox access.
Michelle mentioned the breadth of recruitment and the variety of places you can look for recruitment. I cleaned up the places I reached out to this past year to be kind of more general. But one thing, in addition to this list of places you can look, is also, we learned that we didn't have like, non-high performing students, and that was something we really wanted to work on. Is we wanted to have a wide range. We didn't just want only students that are And it's a difficult balance, right? Because you want students who also care about the technologies they use, and sometimes we can correlate those two things, the performance of a student and their investment. But that's worth considering too. We were lucky enough, Michelle and I, we both worked in the writing program, so we were able to speak to every English teacher who and recruit students that way as well. In
Yeah.
addition, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that is a fantastic way. If you have like a university 101 course or a foundations writing course that every single student needs to take as part of their kind of general requirements, that's a great place to reach out for recruitment.
Yes, thank you. And then also make sure that the application is accessible. We have a sweet button on our website. We also send out emails with the link to the application. And in addition, we've cut down the application questions. It used to be multiple paragraphs for each, for multiple pieces. And at the end of the day, that's just too much to ask a student who doesn't even for sure have a seat. So we've reduced it to 3 questions that really get to the core of who the student is, why they're invested in this, and what changes that they want to advocate for and represent. And the answers across the board were really stunning and really meaningful. I think we had over 47 applicants this past year, so there was a lot of competition. It was great.
Okay, so I know we've had some questions in the chat, and thank you so much, Barbara, for sharing contact information. Here are our email addresses again on the screen. Feel free to reach out anytime. But yes, I will start scrolling back up through the chat to see if we missed anything, but feel free to also unmute and ask questions if you'd like. So Carla, I see your question here. What are some of your research questions? Excellent. So this is this past year has kind of been a transition year from the traditional, the student advisory board that we inherited and kind of where we eventually want to go with it. So one of the ways that we bridged that gap is we focused our questions still on the technology tools, but with more of a quality matters spin. So we took inspiration from the quality matters standards, and we're asking students like, which out of these things like engagement, accessibility, usability, connection with the learning outcomes, what out of all of these factors are the most important to you in a technology tool, and so that's kind of how we're easing our way into this more quality matters, quality assurance focused student advisory board. Yeah, so that's kind of where we started this year. Oh, Todd, hopefully that answered your question a little bit as well, about the kind of feedback regarding QM that the Student Advisory Board provides. Right now, it's still focused on technology tools. But in the future, again, we're hoping to broaden it out to just the standards in general, and then how we are applying them here at the U of A. So kind of the general recommendations that we have fallen into for the university as a whole, and then specific colleges. Are those working for students? Are those actually, the quote unquote best recommendations for what resonates with them? Awesome. Thank you, Fernando, for that comment. This is wonderful. Yes, those capstone courses, exactly, Fernando. Yes, those are also a great way to get more investment and participation into this. I love that. Have you been able to measure general student support for QM, like student support services or students support of QM? Which one? Kyle, we have 10 students on the board and they are all paid positions, yes. Or 8, sorry.
We wanted 10, but 2
We wanted 10.
students
Yeah.
disappeared.
Initially, we had 10. We did have some attrition. Yes, a faculty advisory board too. Yes, absolutely. That's something else that we're interested in, is getting more faculty feedback. We are pretty lucky with our internal review processes that our reviewers are faculty, are our own faculty. So we meet with them once a year and kind of get their input on and kind of like realign as a whole and how we are interpreting and making recommendations based on the QM standards, but we are very much interested in reaching out the entire faculty body. All right, are we out of time?
We are right at the end of the session. Would you like to share any final thoughts?
A big thank you to everyone who showed up today. These are great numbers. We really appreciate you being here. We hope that you were inspired by some of the work that we're doing. Obviously, this is still a toddler. This is still in its infancy, and we are hoping to continue to grow and expand from here. If you'd ever want to reach out and bounce ideas off of us about things you could do at your institution or ideas you have for us about where we can go from here, we'd love to talk more. But yeah, thank you, Pamela. Yes, if we gave you a little bit of inspiration, we're so happy.